to collect information and feedback about Ville Platte for the Opportunity Zone initiative. Opportunity Zone is a program from the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council that essentially it low income designated census tracts across the nation, um, chosen by the governors of the states, provide tax incentives for new investors with capital gains to essentially be able to have new businesses start up in these areas. Um, so a brief overview of Acadiana Planning Commission and what we do. We serve the public sector in planning, implementation of economic, community, and transportation development throughout the region, known as Acadiana. Our parishes are Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion. Um, our scope of work sometimes reaches beyond those boundaries, like for the Louisiana Watershed Initiative, for example, but that is our main region. So this Opportunity Zone work that we're doing, it's a partnership that Acadiana Planning Commission has with One Acadiana, and the title that we've called it is Invest Acadiana. It's an initiative powered by us and 1A to promote the Opportunity Zone investments in the region. So, why are we here? I kind of touched on some of this already, but we're developing a prospectus for the opportunity zones in our region. So Ville Platte has opportunity zones within it, so we're developing a prospectus for it. So far, we have a regional prospectus for Acadiana, we have a Lafayette prospectus, and we have kind of a zoomed in prospectus for the University Corridor in Lafayette. And now we are going through the process of creating a prospectus for several of the smaller towns, including Ville Platte. So our goal is to establish the existing stock of the assets and capitals that constitute Ville Platte's current wealth, determine the future desires of the community, place power of decision-making in the hands of community members, and discover the strength of individuals and their capacities in the community to create an action plan and that local organizations and partnerships can use to spur action. So that's the cover of the prospectus that we're developing. So the methodology that we're using behind this is called WealthWorks. Essentially, it breaks the wealth of a community into 8 categories that you see here. And these are what we are loosely basing our prospectuses on, if you can think of them sort of as chapters of the prospectus. So what we're going to do is go through each of these capitals and identify what we consider an asset in this category of capital for Ville Platte that is existing and that we have already, because that's what we want to highlight and show off in our prospectus. And then we want to come on the back end and figure out, okay, what would we like to see in the future that we might not have yet? So to get started, I'll say if you have feedback on a particular asset that you would like to share with everyone, I'd like to see those in the chat. But if you have something that you feel like maybe it's a little bit more than you feel like typing at the moment, just kind of butt in. Or this is our first asset mapping meeting too, so I'm still trying to figure out how Zoom works exactly. But I think you can just unmute yourself and speak. Okay, so individual capital is going to be the skills, the understanding, physical health, and mental wellness of of a region. We're looking at the workforce, community interests, and health services. So for Ville Platte, I'm only able to find personally what is available via the internet, and that's why having this feedback from individuals is important to us. So I know of Mercy Regional Medical Center in Ville Platte, and I know some of the major employers are going to be Cameron Valves and Measurement, Cabot, Heritage Manor, Union Tank. Those were some of the names that popped up. Apparently, from what I found, the top 10 industries are healthcare, retail, manufacturing, education, public administration, transportation, finance, construction, accommodation, and food services, and administration and support and waste management. I see Gwen, did I say Union Bank? I do have Union Bank in there. Yep. So if there's any kind of individual capital that you can think of that I might not have touched on yet, Jeff, I see Evangeline Parish School System has individual school rankings and programming. That's good. That's good to know. And that's the kind of feedback we're looking for. You don't have a Union Bank in the parish. Oh, Union Tank. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, that's good. I appreciate it.
Alex, this is Jeff. On some of these, can we just talk through some of this? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Rather than put things into chat, I guess with the school system, and I don't know if we have anybody on with the school system, but within the city of Ville Platte, like Ville Platte High School, for example, last school year, 95% of graduating seniors either had advanced placement credit, dual enrollment credit, or some kind of industry work certification. And they have a lot of different pathways within their school system that are tied to some of the local employers within the city. So I think there's some elements there that maybe getting kind of a recap from the school board of kind of the top highlights, kind of the things that they would put in a 3-minute pitch, to say what are their hallmarks, I think would be good.
Okay. Yeah. I know some of the prospectuses that we're dealing with, they have job readiness programs for adults and things. And I was trying to find, does Ville Platte have anything like that, or is it mostly schools that are tied to industries?
Well, SLCC has a campus there as well.
Yeah, I know SLCC and LSU, from what I understand, have satellite campuses in the area. Maybe not directly in Ville Platte, but close.
There's LSU Alexandria and LSU Eunice.
Okay. I think I read that on one of the local websites, but
yeah,
I'm sure I get my facts straight.
Is my audio actually working now?
Yeah, there you go. I can hear you, Kevin.
I had to turn on the camera audio, but another technical glitch. But Jeff's absolutely right. Those are phenomenal statistics for a community the size of Ville Platte, that you have that level of both graduation and preparedness out of high school. And I think that's something we're going to have to really focus and hone in on as being important in the prospectus. The other important thing that we need to do is really get a list of what those job readiness programs are, particularly what the areas of focus, whether it be culinary or industrial or welding or whatever they are.
Right. Another thing that came up with the industries was Savoy Medical Center. Is that is that in Ville Platte or close to Ville Platte?
It's in Mamou, which is close. And just because of, I think because of your, you're talking about a rural community that utilizes, lots of assets that are close by, just where I think it's good to use LSU units. I think it's good to use Savoy Medical Center also.
Yeah, because that's been a conversation in the development of these prospectuses is, do we stick strictly to the opportunity zone boundaries, or realistically is an investor going to be relying on resources that are just beyond the boundary too? And when I'm doing a lot of this research about Ville Platte, a lot about Mamou is coming up. So, because I know they have crossover with industries and whatnot. So I think it is going to reach a little into the communities outside. Strictly speaking, for opportunity zone purposes, though, if an investor wanted to open a business, it would have to be within that opportunity zone boundary. But they can still rely on the workforce that exists outside of that boundary, or the education opportunities outside of that boundary.
Well, as well as the services like healthcare. Having healthcare access is important for small communities,
Yeah.
small rural communities. So that is an attraction for businesses that are looking to locate there and take advantage of the other quality of life issues that small towns have to offer.
Yeah. And I know Cameron Valves and Measurement is kind of leading nationally, right? With manufacturing of some of the stuff that they work on.
Cameron's in an expansion, not Cameron, Cabot is in an expansion mode right now, and they just announced several $1 million, I forget how much it was, of an expansion that they're starting on.
Okay, awesome.
And they're a raw material for a lot of different industries. So, what they're producing from a supply chain standpoint is really critical.
There are also several medical, like walk-in clinics in Ville Platte.
Gwen, do you know the names of them? And we may be able to even highlight on a map.
South Store is one in Ville Platte. They're also in Eunice, and the Heinens have a center. The Dr. Heinen has an office and also has a walk-in center.
We can find the addresses for them. That's not too big.
Charles Edwards with One Telemed is on the meeting right now. Charles, can you tell them a little bit about y'all's service and what y'all do in Ville Platte?
Okay. Yeah, we are a telepsychiatry provider for, we're the telepsychiatry provider for all 5 of the Medicaid MCOs here in Louisiana. So we provide direct services to home via telemedicine, and then we also have a few clinics that we contract with in Ville Platte to provide services where they have a public access kiosk where they can actually go to that location and see one of our psychiatrists or psychiatric nurse practitioners.
Awesome.
That's a good way around the broadband issue, because now it's easier to get a lot of times access at a particular site rather than community access. So that's a really good model.
The place on Lincoln Street is also a federally qualified community health center also. A family medicine clinic, I think is the name of it.
Okay, good. I might have to add a page in the prospectus for the healthcare opportunities, because that's what we've been doing. Some places might have more of one particular aspect of the prospectus than others. So healthcare does seem to be a major focus in Evangeline Parish.
Well, it's good that you have those resources, and we need to really highlight them, that they are present, because that not knowing they're there, the assumption is most rural communities don't have access to good healthcare, but you guys do have some assets that they can tap into, and that's a good plus.
So another big element is they do have a certified site within the industrial park. And that's where Cameron Schlumberger and Ville Platte Ironworks is located. So that industrial park does have available land in there for future development, but it's a state certified site in there as well.
And the other nice part is, and this is kind of a kicker of census geography, unfortunately the park isn't in the opportunity zone, but it's just across the street. Which opens up, because there is a vacant land right around the industrial park that could be further developed and leverage those resources.
Well, and I think some of that vacant land is in the opportunity zone, right?
Yes, correct.
And along Lincoln Road, there's some big retail that is vacant right now in there as well. So there could be some interesting, take a little creativity, but some interesting opportunities.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to move on to the next capital?
Yeah. Does anyone have any other comments about this category of asset before we move on to intellectual?
I have one question. In the opportunity zone, can any of it change? In other words, can any of the parcels of property be merged into the opportunity zone?
We are married to the census geography, because the way the IRS and the federal legislation is written, it's based on census tracts. And we can't change the boundaries of those because they use those to determine congressional districts from the voting rights side. So we're kind of stuck with what we got, and that's unfortunate because the breaks usually mean that one side of the street gets served and the other side is outside, because they use streets as one of the census geographies. The other census geography would be streams or other major physical barriers, but they're all apparent, which is unfortunate because, again, we're leaving out some businesses when they're literally just across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is our intellectual capital. So that's going to be knowledge, resourcefulness, creativity, innovation, institutions, organization sectors. So we're looking for education. I know Jeff touched on a good bit of that. And I know Evangeline in Ville Platte has that brand new library too. I got to visit. It was very nice.
And I'll add here, a list of the work readiness programs that are available, particularly through the school system, is going to be critical here, because that's your primary workforce. So we need to really get, and if anybody knows what programs are available through the school system, please add them or chime in, because we really want to focus in on that.
I think they're on the school board website.
Okay.
Jeff, weren't there like 8 or 9 of them?
Well, they vary. They vary across school campus. So I know that Ville Platte High has some multimedia in that area, but if there is an industry need, they have been very responsive to developing a track, for that need. But we could figure out what those programs are for Ville Platte High.
Okay.
But also, thank you, Jeff. But also, if a student is at Mamu, if a student's at Ville Platte High and they want to do culinary, Mamu has a culinary and Pine Prairie has a culinary, and they can go there for the culinary courses. So it's interchangeable.
And we may not want to mention that they can cross enroll at these other schools, and that workforce within the parish is an asset to everybody.
Okay.
So like as an example, in Basile, they just started a drone program where I believe he's a local farmer, ended up getting certified in it, and they hired him to teach the course. But students from across the parish could go to that. So they've got some great programs.
Mm-hmm. That's the first I've heard of a drone program from a high school.
Well, and that way they can get their drone license, which is hopping, in a bunch of different ways.
So as far as intellectual capital, is there anything outside of schools and libraries that, and I know we have our higher education campus and everything, but like, for example, whenever we did this meeting, so we did one meeting for asset mapping, and it was for Bro Bridge, and that was in November of last year. And we were going to be conducting the rest of them in person. And we even, whenever the stats for COVID started to look like they were, improving a little, we were going to schedule these in person, but we decided it would be best for everyone to go full digital. But whenever we did Bro Bridges, they had Tesh Center for the Arts, where they teach like art classes and stuff like that. So just to give that as an example, if that sparks a bell for anyone.
We have a program through Ville Platte High School. It's called JAG. I guess it's Junior Achievement. I'm not really sure. And so they take some of the students into that program, and they do a lot of activities with them, like visiting the Capitol and doing extraordinary things that not everybody at the school gets to participate in. But Ms. Diana Johnson is the head of that program.
Okay, that's good feedback.
There's also a program with the Rotary Club where they go into Ville Platte High School, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they do like some leadership classes and those types of things. So there seems to be a lot of collaboration between the community and the schools there. But, also on the intellectual side, they've got Balfour Week that happens at Chico Park, but I think is also part of this, because you got the Swamp Pop Museum. Now that might come up in another one of the asset categories, but Balfour Week is a place where a lot of people go to learn about, Cajun music and that type of thing. So I think it could fit with the innovation side, because it seems like Ville Platte's kind of the hub of that kind of innovation in the indigenous music sectors of South Louisiana, at least.
I did find Balfour Week on evangelinparishtourism.org. So that's good too. Yeah. Which
we may want to in this section mention the educational opportunity component of Balfour Week.
Correct.
Because I hadn't thought about it that way. I was thinking of it more in the recreational sense, or like the cultural sense. But that's absolutely education.
Yeah.
Also, Ville Platte High School has an internship program where they'll place their students in local businesses, and they have what's the other program I was going to tell you about? It'll come back to me. There's something else that the associate degree at LSUE. If a student wants to take the vocational track, then they'll go into the programs like Jeff was talking about. And if they want to take the college career track, then they will start them in the 7th grade, planning with them of what courses they have to take, so that in their junior and senior years, they will go to LSUE. And many of them graduate with an associate's degree from LSUE, totally paid by the parish public school system, and get their high school diploma and have 2 years of college under their belt as well. And I think that the Catholic school, Sacred Heart, is working on trying to I think the two school systems are trying to do some kind of joint thing, or Sacred Heart may be trying their own. Some of the other people, Brian, Chris, y'all may know more about what the Sacred Heart is doing.
Let's see, Jeff said joint programs between high schools and community college systems are needed. Okay, this is good, because what I've been able to find on education is pretty much what's available on Ville Platte's website.
Alex, if I can mention, being that we're talking about assets on the intellectual side, I think the leadership team at Evangeline Parish School Board is very strong, very innovative, and engaged. With respect to joint programs with community colleges, I think the issue is really on the community college side and not on the school system side. The school system is ready to do it. And in a lot of cases, the school system is starting programs, like they have one right now with Union Tank that I think is being developed, because Union Tank couldn't get it somewhere else. So the school system is stepping in. So I think that the leadership at the school system is a tremendous asset for the community.
Okay, good. Anything else for intellectual?
Oh, FYI, the Rotary program, I believe, is called Leader in Me, if I remember correctly from my Rotary days. That's that leadership program they do. I'll double check.
Okay.
I don't think they have a leader in, well, they may call it that, but they don't have the Leader in Me program that most of the schools have.
Right.
All right, let's see. Social. Stock of trust, relationships, networks. So this is going to be your religious organizations, Rotary Club, Lions Club, Kiwanis, that type of stuff, veterans. And these typically are a little harder to find information for online. A lot of times it's like a Facebook that hasn't been updated in a while, but so what kind of clubs, I guess, do we have?
I think some of our other participants who are actually in Ville Platte or have more direct connections, I can tell you what I know, but I'd like to hear from them.
There's Lions Club, there's the Knights of Columbus, the Rotary, as you mentioned, Chamber of Commerce. Those are the main ones that I'm involved in.
Okay.
I know the churches too have a lot of outreach programs. I don't know if anybody can speak to it, but for example, our superintendent of education is also a pastor, and they do programs for the youth, and they do food banks and different things like that. And some of the other churches I know do little leadership programs for their young children in the community.
You mentioned veterans. We have VFW and VVA in Ville Platte, in the city itself. For the veterans organizations, there's at least those two.
Okay, good. So, because of how many times Rotary has been mentioned and their community involvement and their educational involvement, I'm just, kind of storyboarding and mapping out what the prospectus might look like, and, just keeping all that in mind. What about any kind of nonprofits that are maybe not mentioned yet?
They do have the Girls and Boys Place in Ville Platte for the youth,
Mm-hmm.
which is a nonprofit that's kind of run by the city.
Okay, thank you for that.
Is there a community foundation also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Oh, I think you were muted.
So Connie was on just a few minutes ago, and she has the Acosta Foundation and does a lot of work throughout the parish. And there's the Council on Aging. There's several.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the Evangeline Parish Foundation, which is an affiliate of the Community Foundation. That I think someone mentioned something
Yes, that's good.
just a minute ago.
And what you'll notice is there's going to be considerable overlap between these categories. So some things will appear more than one category.
Renee, what's the foundation that, community care or something like that? That, is it Corleen or what's the girl's name? You're
Marlene
muted.
Baylor, Community Action.
Yeah, that's big in the parish.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. Does anyone else have anything for the social capital?
Well, we have the Chamber of Commerce, the Evangeline Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean,
That's
there's
what I
strong
guess.
presence of religious organizations as well, you know, so, you know, both, you know, I think the Catholic Church is very active, but also there's a lot of multiple churches, in particular in the Black community, that are also very active as well.
Yeah, I've got a list of churches. I'm just going to read off. I have Antioch Baptist Church, Disciples Baptist, First Baptist, Ninth Baptist, Our Lady Queen of All Saints, Sacred Heart Church, St. John Baptist Church, and St. Joseph Church. And I think that's it. Are there any major ones that I didn't hit on just now? Sir, I see someone speaking, but you might be muted.
I think that's a pretty good list.
Okay. And if I still see someone speaking, but they're muted, if you want to drop whatever you're saying in the chat box, so we can make sure we
That's
get that.
Renee just talking to somebody else, I think.
Okay. Let's see. All right, let's move on.
I'm sorry.
Let's move on to the cultural asset then. This one is always going to be one of the easier ones for me to find information on myself. Traditions, customs, festival, and arts. That's usually the stuff that is shown off and highlighted. So I have a list of festivals, and I'm not a French guy, but I'm going to try it out. The Carrier de Mardi Gras à Cheval, Le Grand Hurrah, the Smoked Meats Festival, and Louisiana Cotton Festival, and Le Tournoi de la Ville Platte. I hope I said those at least relatively okay, but is there any major ones that I missed? And I do have the list. I think there's a more extensive list on the tourism website on Evangeline Parish Tourism that I'm going to be checking with, but
And there are others in the parish, like in Mamu, there are a couple of others, and just all around. So they're abundant throughout the parish.
okay. And then, as Jeff mentioned before, there's the Swamp Pop Museum, and kind of thinking in terms of stuff like theaters and museums and galleries. If there's anything that comes to anyone's mind. And then I know Ville Platte also has a historic district. I found the map on LAOCD's website, and it seems like there's a large cluster of locations along Main Street that are in the designated historic district.
Alex, this comes up with culture, but I think it also needs to be added on the industry side. There's also a very strong food culture. I mean, you mentioned the Smoked Meat Festival,
Okay.
but Ville Platte is known, you know, as a place for smoked meats. But on the industry side, you have Slap Your Mama seasoning, Jack Miller's barbecue sauce, Carrie's Brew, Pig Stand barbecue sauce. I mean, there's a cluster there of food manufacturing companies that goes along with that culture as well. So,
Okay, great. And I saw I think, does Crystal Hot Sauce have something going on in the area too?
I don't think so. I think Crystal's more New Orleans based.
Yeah, Chris is more New Orleans, but
Okay.
Slap Your Mama is definitely,
It's Carrie's Rue.
yeah, Carrie's Rue.
Okay, good. Yeah, that does have crossover between the individual stuff with the workforce and the cultural. See, that's the thing, is a lot of these assets, we have a hard time saying, okay, well, do we stick it in this category or do we stick it in that category? So, but it's all good information.
And I don't know if it would go if there's a recreation section, but under culture, I mean, hunting and fishing, outdoor activities, a very strong part of the local culture.
Well, we also have a natural section, natural assets. So, that goes to the parks and outdoor recreation component.
Yeah, it's the next one on the list, and I think that's a pretty good segue into it. But before,
I'll let Avon wave at this point too, because Avon's background is actually in outdoor recreation, out of our Vista volunteer.
yeah, so before we move on to natural capital, does anyone else have any last comments for the cultural capital? Okay, so for natural, I'm just going to read off what I have that I was able to find. It's obviously Chico State Park, the Louisiana State Arboretum, Crooked Creek Recreation Area, Ville Platte Park, Gloria S. Rank Hope Park, and Ville Platte Golf and Country Club. And I think a lot of times these little pocket parks and these little, smaller community neighborhood parks get overlooked, but if there's anything that I haven't mentioned that you'd like to see included.
The country club is a membership and they are not open at all to the public.
Okay.
They don't want to open up to the public.
So maybe they should, I don't know.
Mention them and build. I mean, it may be appropriate to mention them and build, and that they're available, they're open. I mean, you could get a membership.
Okay.
Is Crooked Creek? Do you have Crooked Creek on that list?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I sure do.
Tarzan Lake is also open to the public for fishing and hunting.
Okay, what was the name of that lake?
Tarzan Lake, Cazan, 4,000 acre farm. And we have campsites, hunting and fishing.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, anything else for the nature and recreation, outdoor or sports type stuff?
Yeah, we're missing the whole ballpark system down the Lithcote Road there. It's tons of youth recreational and sports activities that go on there.
Okay. What's the name of that ballpark system?
What is it, Brian? It's Evangeline Recreational.
Yeah, the Evangeline Parish Recreational District. And then you could also mention that there's the Dixie Youth League that plays there, and I think the girls are still using Pony. You may correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but the girls are under, what's the corporate name that the girls function under?
There is a nonprofit name. I don't remember what it is.
Anyway, it's a recreational facility for youth, softball, baseball. They do flag football. They do soccer out there. It can be rented for adult activities, whether it's softball, activities or any other activities. It's a combination of owned by the parish and run by the city.
Okay.
So there's the Ville Platte Girls Recreational Softball League.
Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. Oh, I know we had Lake Kazan. Am I saying that correctly? Probably not.
Kazans.
Kazans. Okay.
Hey, Kazan.
Kazan. I'm
We'll get
from
it trained.
Homa. I'm from Homa, so have some. I know how to say all the stuff in Terrebonne Parish, but you move a few parishes over, and it's a different.
They also
You'll
have
get it.
a little basketball youth league, EPYB.
Okay.
Do you guys have anybody who's doing like kayak rentals or, sales or service for hunting and fishing? Like the
Yes, we do it at Kazan Lake.
Okay, good. Do you have anybody who like dresses out or cleans fish for you? That's a business. Or dresses deer
No.
when you do deer hunting?
The kayaking right now is by organized tours. It's
Okay.
it's not just drop in and do it.
The
Yeah,
kayak.
there is a fella in Pine Prairie that does clean deer and wild game and stuff like that you were
Well,
talking about.
T-Boys
A
does
lot
right
of-
there in Mamu also.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of our little local stores do it, and
Okay.
What about businesses for hunting equipment? So guns and, camo and that kind of stuff.
Well, or lures, fishing lures, and bait and all those other fun things.
Yeah, they have in Ville Platte. There's industrial service. They have guns and all the fishing lures and stuff, and then you have a boat shop that also has some fishing supplies. Bayou Marine.
Mhm.
That's in Ville Platte. In the general area, there's some other ones, outside of town.
Okay. Is there anything that we might not have yet, but you'd like to see? I know Louisiana in general is so rich in recreation and outdoor opportunities, but
I guess one thing would be maybe a shooting range. A lot of times guys have to go find a landowner that they can, shoot their rifle or their handgun or whatever, and there is no range. At one time, years ago, they said they had one on the outskirts of Chico Park, but that's been before my time.
okay.
We're also missing Miller's Lake, which is another 2,000 acre lake that's open to public fishing also.
Okay, good.
And Jeff, I know we have your first class projects. You had shared those with us. Could you share the last semesters as well? Because I think we've got some good taglines and really some good components we can incorporate here with what you guys pulled out in the class and in the visioning exercises.
Yeah, I'm happy to get those to you. And, in particular on the tourism side, they created a kind of a trail around stores that, specialty meat stores, smoked meat stores, those kind of things. And I think last semester, our communication students kind of built upon that. So I'll try to get you all that stuff.
Yeah, because I can see that little component fitting really, really well in this section.
Yep. The other thing is, what about like state byways? Is there a byway that goes? I'm assuming there is.
The Zydeco byway, it goes through Ville Platte.
Okay.
That's the Zydeco Cajun Prairie Byway?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's literally right through downtown on 190.
Okay.
You also have the Chauncey Pete Bourne complex that hosts cattle shows and I'm not sure who owns that complex, but there's a lot of 4-H events that go on there also.
It's owned by the police jury owns that building. It's approximately about 60,000 square feet. It's a pretty big building.
And what's the name of it again?
The Chauncey Pete, P-I-T-R-E, Petrie, Pete.
Okay. All right. Anything else for natural?
I think we have some not official ecotourism going on. Like I've brought people in and the local farmers will take them out and show them how to crawfish and stuff like that. And I know that I'm working with some people on some actual official ecotourism things that are going to be coming up pretty soon. But right now, I don't think there's anything formal.
Okay.
I know one of the big complaints about setting up tours and stuff was getting things ADA ready and insurance. When I spoke to several crawfish farms, those were some of their concerns. So if we have some funding that may be available to help get some of those things.
Yeah, maybe through USDA. And I'm going to add, and you guys, I just got an invite for, and I don't know who I sent it to, but there's a webinar on tapping into agricultural tourism and ecotourism. And there are a series of case studies. I'll have to send you the info on it. That might be worth seeing what other people have done successfully as models.
I'd love to have that, Chad.
Okay, I'll dig for it and get it out to you guys. I want to say it's IEDC that's the one that's putting it out. So that, I mean, it's a pretty credible organization.
Okay. All right, built capital. So this one is gonna have some tie over with cultural, because you're looking at your historic structures, and again, I know that the historic district comes into play here, and there's a lot of structures on Main Street. But then we're also looking at transportation and airports, trains. I know there's the rail spur. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for here with built capital. Is like infrastructural, transportation.
As was mentioned earlier about broadband, so I mean that's kind of on the radar right now. But I want to ask Mr. Edwards a question just about the services that he provides from a telehealth standpoint, and you're servicing, Ville Platte right now. Are you running into any trouble on the telecommunications side of providing your service?
Not really. From the clinic base, where the two clinics that we have in Ville Platte, we're not having any issues. We ran into a few places. There was a client we were trying to see in Acadiana, which is right on the outskirts. That was an issue. But all the patients that we normally provide direct service to home, we haven't seen any issues. It does, our technology doesn't take much bandwidth. So we've done upgrades to reduce our bandwidth requirements, so that helps. Prior to doing that upgrade, we were, but now we don't see it as much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I could interrupt Alex for a second, I wanted to introduce Mr. Charles Edwards with One Telemed, who's spoken a couple of times, but also to let all of our friends in Ville Platte and Evangeline Parish know that he was actually born in Ville Platte as well, so and is very interested, as a service provider there, but also as somebody who still has family there, interested in engaging in more discussions about the city and the parish.
Well, and if we visit the broadband issue again, there is money through USDA available, and there's a lot of money right now for telemedicine. And that could conceivably be used to bring in a fiber optic trunk line that we could eventually spread out. So I'm tossing that out there for a conversation at a later date, but there is the ability to maybe tap into some federal money to bring in and improve broadband connections for at least telemedicine.
And
Renee,
I'm sorry.
Renee might be able to speak about what the hospital's doing with that.
Mm-hmm.
We're using our telemedicine, and we do have access to broadband, but we still are running into issues and problems using our telemedicine. All our doctors, especially during this entire COVID situation, have been using a lot of telemedicine with their clients, but they are running into issues and problems with internet.
Yeah, and I would guess it's more on the client end than on the hospital end, though the hospital may be hitting some problems too.
Yes, well, we're mostly doing telemedicine with Tulane. That's who our outreach is. Clients, not so much. Our doctors are the ones that are interfacing with the clients. We have a stroke program, and that's what we use telemedicine for with Tulane.
Okay, gotcha. Well, anyway, it's a conversation we need to have maybe off of here later, and we might want to circle around with you, Renee, and talk about it. Because if we can get a trunk line into Ville Platte, then it's a matter of just getting additional people to subscribe and branch out.
Actually, we have a line in from Detail. There's somebody else now, but the city brought it in, and the school board and the clerk of court brought it in, and a lot of people have fed off of that, but the cost is extremely high. I know that somebody outside of the city has it here in Vidrine, but it's, like $3,000 or something to get it to your site right now.
Wow. Yeah.
I think that CenturyLink has, or is in the process of doing something to upgrade that, but I don't know the details on it.
Okay.
So what about the rail spur? Does anyone want to speak about that? Or I don't personally know much about it yet.
Well, you do have a main line. What's the major railroad that goes by the industrial park?
It's the Acadiana
Acadiana
Railway.
is the short line.
It's a short line.
Union Pacific is the main rail that's in the parish.
Right.
Yeah. Acadiana Rail is the spur that I think he's talking about.
Okay. And I know DRA just funded a rehab of the spur in the industrial park, so that's another asset. Just worth mentioning.
Okay. What's the closest airport? Is that going to be Lafayette?
And Alexandria.
Okay.
Opelousas has private air, but not commercial.
Yeah, Opelousas has a little private strip and bunkie.
And I guess you could land on the crop dusting field in the parish too. There's several.
Okay. All right. Do we feel good to move on, or anyone else have anything else for transportation, infrastructure?
But I think the brownfield site, I know Chad had looked at some of that. I think especially along Main Street in Ville Platte, there's probably several locations, old filling stations, those kind of places.
Yeah, I had talked to Jennifer Vadrine last week before. She's got one or two properties she's looking at, so I'm going to try to get her a targeted brownfield assessment for those. And we're working with John Sutherland out of ULM, who's involved with Delta Regional Authority. He runs their DRA Leadership Institute. but he's a Lafayette resident, which makes it a little bit interesting. And he's a character, but he's been doing a lot of outreach through LMA to help rural communities with brownfields. If what I'd eventually like to do is actually build an inventory of potential brownfield sites along Main Street and downtown, and then start looking at how we could market those. But that's a little bit more out beyond the scope right now. I think we just kind of target one or two sites that have some development potential, and maybe list them in the prospectus if anybody knows of any of those.
Well, and Chad, could you clarify for everyone in
What a
the city?
brownfield site is?
Yes, because
A
like the
brownfield
thing
site
with like,
is defined, and this is an EPA definition. It has the perception of having, based on its prior uses in history, of having some form of low-level environmental contamination. Now, when we say that, what we mean is things like auto body and paint shops, dry cleaning plants, gas stations. Those are the typical things you find as brownfield sites. You have other low-level industrial sites like blacksmith shops, way back in history, as well as foundries. Those can be a little bit more contaminated. But in general, what you're typically going to find along major highways and in downtown areas are your gas stations and your dry cleaning plants and your auto and paint and body shops, and particularly even old auto dealerships. Those are kind of your poster child brownfield sites. As our brownfield friends out of the regional office in Dallas say, it doesn't necessarily have to be dirty to be a brownfield site, but on the other token, it could be clean and still be a brownfield site. Trash on it doesn't necessarily mean brownfields. The other sites that have been falling into the brownfield classification are places that have been used for drug manufacturing, particularly things like methamphetamine and crack. Those sites use chemicals that are very toxic, and a lot of times they are spilled, or you have explosions or fires that contaminate sites. And also you have to consider buildings that are over 50 years old. Those have environmental hazards that are based on their age. They have things like lead-based paint, mold, and asbestos. And mold is a chronic problem throughout Louisiana because of the moisture in our climate. So older buildings tend to have more of it. So that's one of the things that you have to tackle when you're redeveloping a downtown area, is the older buildings that have mold, lead-based paint, and asbestos, as well as the gas station sites and the dry cleaning plants. But a lot of them are really cool old buildings that would be cool. It would be nice to rehab.
Okay. Before we move on, we good on this one? Okay, political. This one is more or less easy for me to, kind of find on the internet. Eventual and parish police jury structure, and, the local offices and elected officials. But if anyone has anything to add or any valuable comment that they would like to make about this asset.
And again, I think this is where Jeff highlighted one, is the leadership at the school board and the school system.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that we put here.
I think also the leadership in the legislature, the state legislature, has changed. And there's a lot of activity going on now, not just for Ville Platte, but for the whole parish and district, that I think we're going to see a lot of changes coming from that.
Okay.
Well, and just speaking from the university side and UL, I mean, we had great interaction with members of the police jury, during our time, so, I mean, so there's, I think, pretty good engagement from the elected official side, as well, in the city and the parish.
Mr. Donald Bajeron with Evangeline Parish Police Jury is the chairman of the Region 5 Steering Committee of the Louisiana Watershed Initiative, which is another big project we have going on the side that I'm fortunate enough to be able to work on. So anything else for political?
What it says, the size of the jury. I mean, do you need any of those specifics?
Is it available online? If not, then I would say
Well,
yes.
I'm one of the police jurors, so I
Okay.
mean, whatever questions you need, I can answer that. We have not a 9-member police jury.
Okay.
2 of our members, including myself, me, and Eric Swallow, are also on the executive committee for the Police Jury Association for the state. We also are on the national level committees for Rural Action Caucus.
Mm-hmm. I kind of lean to Chad to help me formulate these questions because I've been in government, well, APC for 1 year, but I went to school for landscape architecture and design. So a lot of this stuff is new to me, and I'm still kind of wet behind the ears. So Chad, do you have any questions related to political capital that you want to help me with?
Well, in political capital also, it includes the willingness to create things like cultural districts and economic development districts, your industrial sites and your industrial park. Those
Yeah,
are all forms of political capital.
Yeah, our industrial park is owned by the police jury.
Yeah.
And you know, as you know, they have a smart site within it that is pre-certified to basically uh, start groundwork tomorrow.
And see, those represent the political will to attract businesses, which businesses are looking for.
Are there any other economic development type offices that we haven't touched on yet? Like, for example, I worked at Baton Rouge's downtown development district. Is there anything that I missed? I think we pretty
No,
much
but
covered all.
Brian, if you could talk a little bit about the subdivision out of well, it's still in the industrial park, but not just looking for the manufacturing, like you have the new client coming in.
Yeah, we just did we just adopted a plan in order to bring in small businesses to one section of our industrial park, so that it's not just the big businesses that we're trying to get in, but we're also looking at the smaller, you know, maybe a 10-man operation, so that we can get some activity going and maybe some complementary businesses to the larger businesses that we have.
Okay. And something that we've done for Bro Bridges prospectus when I covered the political capital was I included all of their city hall departments, and if I'm an investor that's moving into the area, I provided a list of numbers that they might want to have access to for different purposes of permitting and zoning or police department, tax, utilities. Is that information accessible online if I wanted, you know, if I wanted to pull from a list of numbers and things like that, or where do I go to find that stuff?
You should be able to go to the police jury's website and find most of those agencies or departments that you would be looking for.
Okay.
Another, and Rebecca brings it up in the chat, the Evangel Industrial Board, and having a good direct contact to the board would be useful in the prospectus, because that way you have one part that a business could, or somebody who's looking to relocate could come in and contact, like Tojo.
Yeah, Tojo is our direct contact. He sits on the Chamber of Commerce for us. He's our, you know, industrial guy, you know, basically representing anything that has to do with industry representation.
So I actually have Industrial Development Board covered in the next capital, which is financial.
Okay.
But does that make sense?
Well, I think we could probably put it either way. And it is an outreach or an extension of Evangel Parish government. We do need to make sure we have good contact info for Tojo though, because I've had trouble in the past finding his contact info.
I found it on one Acadiana's website. I just found an email address for him.
Yeah, I can provide you with a cell phone number as well.
Okay, good.
Okay. Since we're on Facebook Live right now, I'm gonna wait until after the meeting to get that from you. But so the last capital is financial capital, and that is going to be banks, local incentives, and all of our economic partners. So far, as mentioned before, Industrial Development Board, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Evangeline Parish Tourism Commission. Are there any major players that I haven't mentioned?
Well, on the philanthropic side, you have the Evangeline Parish Foundation.
Okay.
Kate, do you have a list of banks?
Not at the time. At this time, no.
So that would be another thing, is to build that out, and then who and a contact list too, or phone numbers, so that if you're looking for financing,
Yeah.
you go to.
I have a list of banks, but since I'm working on the same template for each of the community's prospectuses, the list of banks that I have is for a different community in the one that I'm looking at. So, but that's something we'll get next. And that covers all of the assets.
For the folks from Evangeline Parish, is there a land bank in Evangeline Parish?
No.
There's not. Okay.
Jeff, what's a land bank?
I don't know the exact details of it, but I know that a lot of times farmers will use that as an asset, for financing and those kind of things. A lot of it's ag based.
Okay.
And in an urban environment, that's a whole different meaning. But in the agricultural realm, it provides some of the USDA backed loan programs for agricultural land, agricultural forestry, and they provide the financing, and the loans are then backed by the federal government, so that if a farmer defaults, the bank doesn't have to worry about collecting on that loan.
So speaking of that, Chad, let me ask Brian, is there a USDA office in Ville Platte?
We have the Soil Conservation Office, which is right across from the courthouse.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
What about Agricultural Extension Service?
They have the FSA office. They have the FSA.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all in one office.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I know most of those offices are affiliated with either Southern or LSU. Do you know which one it's affiliated with?
It's LSU. They have the LSU Extension office right next to the courthouse also.
Yeah.
Yeah, the LSU Ag Center, which the police jury actually funds a portion of.
Right.
And you have quite a few, I say quite a few, you have at least a couple local banks that do a lot of agricultural lending also.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking you don't have a specific land bank. I think they're just writing using through the USDA program, the USDA backed program. We'll probably find out who those are through the Extension Service.
Okay. Oop. Anyone else for financial capital? Any last input? So next, I just wanted to highlight some of the resources of where you can go for information regarding opportunity zones. Let me Okay, so this is Acadiana's website, and they'll have ways to submit projects. If you have a project, you can do that here. If you're an investor, you can do that here, and view previous versions, previous prospectuses that were complete already. And they have these community profiles for the communities with the census tracts that are designated as opportunity zones, as well as their typology. And then a full parish profile that One Acadiana has built out. So I've been using this as a resource, and there's the prospectus cover. That's what it's going to be whenever it's completed. So that's one good resource for them. And then I want to show you on our website, planacadiana.org / opportunity zones. I have our previous prospectuses that were completed. I'll show you the most recent one, the University Corridor Prospectus. And this was completed before we adopted the methodology of asset mapping through WealthWorks with the 8 capitals. So it's a little different than what we're covering now. I don't know if it's gonna load up for me. Oop.
While you're doing that, Cade, we haven't really gotten a lot of traction here in the parish, and I'm curious what, with regard to opportunity zones, I'm curious about what other towns, cities like Ville Platte, about the same size as us, how are they moving forward? Is there a champion? Is it the mayor? Is it the police jury? Who's heading the efforts, and is there a model we can look at to try to get things moving quickly here?
Yeah, and as far as opportunity zones go, you really need a champion, a local community champion for boots on the ground. And these marketing materials are really kind of the backbone of getting the conversation started. We have been working hard with the One Acadiana to do project cultivation. And really, if we don't have projects that are ready to go, it's going to be our sites that are ready to use to attract a business. It's going to be hard to attract somebody just as a cold call. But if we have a housing project we need to do, and it's got an investment component, really the next step is going to be to market that in the opportunity zone to try to attract investment into the project. So project development right now is like the key part once we get this particular marketing tool there. And eventually those individual identified projects will be slipped into the prospectuses so that we can market them in a broader range. But smaller communities have been having a heck of a time getting traction. And even in Lafayette, where we do have some projects, we are what they consider a tertiary market, so we're still not getting a lot of traction here, and COVID has not helped. That's the downside. But the upside is if you guys are, as a community, can start working and identifying projects that you want to see moving forward, that's really the next step. And that could be anything from whatever businesses are already looking to locate there. How do we tap into those and give them that little push over the edge to get them involved? The other side is what can you do on the local level to make your opportunity zones more attractive? You know, for example, here in Lafayette, Lafayette created cultural districts in each of the opportunity zones so that people could tap into the state historic preservation tax credits. It also gives you access to the restoration tax abatement programs through this LED, as well as the new angel investor tax credits, which are enhanced. The other side is what can we do, and I think Jeff is addressing this on his end, with encouraging entrepreneurs to come forward and either invest their own capital gains into getting a project up and running or looking for investment. But again, it's the project cultivation side is really the critical part right now.
Okay. And what kind of time frame do we have left?
They're going to be, the likelihood is they're going to be changing the legislation. There's at least one bill in Congress right now to extend the initial benefit, the maximum benefit for another 4 years. I think it's probably going to pass, but as it stands right now, you have really another 5 years to get something started, to get a good benefit. The greatest benefit is going to, of course, be the one that's going to be investing in the next 2 years, and then it diminishes off after that. And the whole program twilights in 2046. But as long as you've got some investment in there, you still, even after the tax deferrals and the step up in basis expire, you still have the tax exemption for any capital gains off of that off of the investment, which will last through 2046.
Okay.
Hey, something I wanted to mention, the city owns some property right behind Salapia Mama. There's probably about 7 acres in town that is owned by the city of Ville Platte.
And one of the conversations you can have is, it's a carrot to attract somebody who could do affordable housing for you, where you provide the property, they provide the development and the construction part. That's one example. It could also be where we work with USDA or EDA to do something that would be ready for a potential tenant on that property. I mean, those are all.
I think that would be the better track. Would be something for a tenant, not the affordable housing.
Yeah, and those, that could be anything from a spec building. Working with USDA or EDA to build a spec building, which is sort of like ready for a tenant, but it's not completely outfitted out. So it has all the basics. It has water, sewer, electric, but it's not. It's just a shell, and then the tenant comes in and builds to their particular needs. And that's one option. I mean, there's a lot of different options. It's just working with USDA and planning out, doing the facilities planning to where we have something that could pull somebody in potentially. And the city could use that 7 acres to do a smaller industrial park that maybe, say, focused on food production or the value-added agricultural products that you're already doing, to attract other businesses that are similar to Slappy Mama, not necessarily in the same category, but or doing packaged smoked meats or whatever.
Yeah, I think that would be a good route to go.
Yeah, I mean, play to your strengths. You already have a good supply chain for a lot of things, and it's tapping into those and really using that to market yourself, to say, hey, look, we already have these here. You can tap into these other businesses that are in the realm to help package and get your stuff out.
Chad, you said you've spoken with the mayor recently. Has she expressed any interest in or ideas in projects for Opportunity Zone?
She's got some, she's very focused on housing. That's the only reason why I mentioned it. And she's looking at 1 or 2 brownfield sites, and I don't know exactly what she's looking at right now. The other possibility is working with housing and urban development, because I know, if I remember right, Ville Platte is a community that is eligible to apply for some of the HUD grants. But that, again, that's housing, that's workforce housing. It would be interesting to see. I mean, we really need to kind of sit down with her and see what she's open to and what the council is open to.
Okay, thank you.
I dropped a map in the chat box of Ville Platte's opportunity zones and in a GIS application where you can type in an address and see if you're in an opportunity zone or a particular location that you're interested in. So does anyone have any final thoughts or comments or anything that we didn't touch on that you might want to discuss before we end the meeting?
I'm going to say thank you, everybody. I think we've got, this has certainly helped fill in our gaps on the work that we've been doing. And the work that Jeff has done so far is also going to be leveraged in this prospectus. So we've got a lot of good pieces, and I think we've got a lot to market, and a lot of strengths within Evangeline Parish and Ville Platte that I think we can tap into that most people don't realize are there. It's just getting the word out.
Thank you, everyone, for all of y'all, what you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we'll give you guys a nice product when it's all done, and you guys can use it however you see fit. But we got to think of this as a living document. We can modify and add to it at any point as we move forward, and try to keep it up to date, as much up to date as we possibly can.
We appreciate it.
Hey
I
guys,
saw-
what I want to say about this document is that don't just think of it as something strictly for, opportunity zone,
No,
but it's a way
absolutely.
to create regional, local profile to use for any business prospects or any kind of recruitment for the area. So it's something that you definitely can use more than once.
Absolutely, and that's really what our goal with these was, is to have something that's very generalized. We have the opportunity zone thing component, but we want to highlight really the whole community and the whole parish in the document.
What's y'all's time frame, Chad?
We're hoping to have this completed by the end of September, so you guys can have something that's usable pretty quick.
Okay.
And this is really the last phase of all of the prospectuses. Cade's already done a great job of templating them all out. We have a consistent look throughout the region, and then he's already done a lot of background, and he and Avon both have done a lot of background research. So this kind of fills in the gaps in the research that they've done. And again, the hard part with rural communities is you just don't have a lot that's web-based, and we need the interaction to fill in the gaps. Make sure we don't miss anything.
Anything that we can help with beyond this, just let us know.
And look, when we get a full draft, we'll circulate it and let everybody, comment, and we'll make corrections as appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you everyone, because like I said, I'm able to find most or some info online, but it's the community feedback and hearing from people that is really going to help me complete this prospectus. And this was the first virtual asset mapping meeting that we've conducted, so you are all the guinea pigs, and I really appreciate letting us figure out the system with you. So.
But I wanted to move.
Good job, Cade.
Yeah, I just, not to interrupt, we want to move you guys a little bit early because Jeff had done so much work already. It almost makes it a little bit easier on us.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. And
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
when we have a product, we'll send it to you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
All
thanks.
right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.